Hi everyone, Messicoda back again with another live dev interview, this time with Bankroll Studios, creators of Mad Maps, the amazing terrain tool for Unity that has a road tool built in as well. Oh my word! Bankroll Studios are the guys behind Hurt World, that Rust-like game for Unity. Well, made with Unity. Well, Rust's made with Unity too. Unlike Rust though, you can get some of the assets they used to make Hurt World. So sit back, enjoy this 3-part. I've chopped it up into little pieces to make it easier to digest because it's massive. And I'll see you all in a second. Everyone in chat, at home, in an internet cafe, on their mobile phones, around the world. Do people still use internet cafes? Please give a very warm, messy welcome to, pronounced it wrong, Caltrix, the Bankroll Studios.
Or Sean in the regular world.
Or Sean in the regular world, creators of Mad Maps. Mad Maps is a powerful integrated collection of tools to solve all of your Unity terrain pipeline needs. Welcome to the show. Again, Sean. Welcome back.
Good to be here.
Now, everyone at home might remember, Sean, if you were here for the epic 4-man tag team stream that was the, what did I call it? The terrain dev bonanza. We had Dennis of Map Magic, we had Gaia and Gina developer Adam Goodrich, we had Stefan from Bite the Bytes, and we also had obviously Sean, Bankroll Studios Mad Maps on the stream. I had a great time, didn't we, mate?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Had a good chat about a lot of different stuff, about the new terrain system, about what everyone was doing, about general asset development. Yeah, it was
quite an epic. I mean, I'm struggling at the moment. I'm still trying to edit it down and to cut it into nice little pieces to stick it on YouTube. So that's just, I mean, we went on for about 4 hours actually. So
yeah, I mean, I guess it's tricky with 5 people trying to structure a discussion in any kind of like logical way, I guess. I mean, I can't even do that when I'm just having 5-person conversation with regular people about regular stuff, let alone very technical things like Unity.
Let alone when you've got somebody trying to bait you all into having an argument as well.
I don't need to be baited much to have an argument.
Good. All right, mate, let's just get a little bit of a background introduction for those who weren't there in the last stream. Just give us a little intro into yourself, your background, and what got you basically into this whole game development shenanigans.
Yeah, so for a while I worked at a studio called Bankroll Studios, making a game called Hurt World, which actually just released a really big patch, kind of like a second version basically of the game that just came out. So if you wanted to jump in and have a go, now would be a great time. So Hurt World was an open world survival game, multiplayer. So kind of part of the open world survival game genre is making really big, complicated maps that like can contain a bunch of different players, and they're always like pretty complicated and have like they need to be designed and they need to flow in a specific way. So like the whole process of map design and map iteration was a really kind of big part of making that game. So while I was in the studio, I started kind of working on this internal tool, which solved a lot of the problems we were running into, making really big, complicated levels with lots of moving parts that we wanted to be able to like split up and give to different team members that they could work in isolation. And, you know, we got really sick of every time we wanted to change stuff, having to go and like redo the entire map from scratch. Like if with the traditional Unity terrain, if you do something, you know, you put a mountain somewhere and you're like, you play test it and you're like, I really kind of just need that mountain like 100 meters to the left. That's really hard to do in the traditional Unity terrain thing. You basically just have to nuke the whole area and like do it again from scratch, and it's not going to be the same if you painted a really nice mountain that first time. It's it's going to be tricky to get the same result the second time. Or you can go down kind of the route of like manually editing height maps in Photoshop and manually making all these splat maps and stuff, but that's just like a disaster as well. So yeah, Mad Maps kind of came out of this internal tool. It got to like a really mature state, the tool, and I was like, yeah, this is really useful. There's nothing really like this uh, on the Unity asset store right now, so I decided to kind of move it into its own thing. So yeah, basically, what Mad Maps does is it does a couple of things, I guess. The first thing it does is it provides like a layering system for terrain information. So in like the same way that you would have layers in Photoshop that get all blended together to output some final result, Mad Maps does that with terrain information, so like tree positions, splats, heights, all that kind of thing. So like, and you get the equivalent benefit of like, if you're trying to make a really complicated image in MS Paint, it's a disaster. Every time you do a stroke, you destroy all the information like sitting behind what you paint over. And so if you want to like change stuff later, you've lost all that information. It's really hard to go back and like fiddle with stuff. So Mad Maps tries to make that really easy. It tries to set up what's called a non-destructive pipeline, where you can kind of just go back really easily in the decisions you made, and it won't destroy all the work. Like you can go back and change a decision, and it won't destroy all the work you did after you made that decision. So you can move that mountain really easily, 100 meters to the left, and just click a button, and it'll all just work. You won't have to like deal with all the stuff of that you would normally have to deal with in a destructive pipeline of just losing everything you've done after you painted that mountain. And so that's kind of the foundation of Mad Maps. And then it comes with these two kind of plugins built on that system. So the first plugin is like a copy-paste functionality that we call world stamps. And that just lets you capture and store any part of your world, any part of your terrain, and it'll capture all that information. And then you can store that as a prefab. You can and then stamp that down wherever you want on your terrain. So like you can do things like make a little village on some other terrain somewhere, and then capture it and put that little village in your level. And every time you want to like update the layout of the village, you go to this little reference terrain that you have on the side and change it there, and then just update the stamp. And that means you can kind of inject your level design into your bigger level and split things up much more in like a much more modular way. You can have little different areas of your level living in different scenes or different areas, and then you just combine them really easily. And so that means it's really easy for like multiple team members to collaborate on things. It means it's a lot easier to version like different parts of your level. You can iterate a lot more easily. And then the second plugin is a road tool, which does what it sounds like. Basically, just kind of does things along a spline on a terrain.
So we get a road tool for free inside Mad Maps?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we needed to make it for Hurt World. We've got a pretty complicated road network in Hurt World. So we needed something to do it. We needed to do it in like a non-destructive way. And none of the solutions we found out there for road tools were really fit all our requirements. Like a lot of them are closed source. They are a little bit fiddly a lot of the time, especially in their kind of integration with the Unity terrain. So yeah, we needed something custom, and it turned out to be like a really cool tool that does a lot of cool stuff, not just limited to roads, but it's more just kind of like changing the terrain in a kind of anything that changes the terrain along a spline can be done with this tool. So you can do things like rivers, because all you're doing is like lowering the terrain along a spline and inserting like a mesh that might be the water mesh, doing things like that. You can do things like tree lines, just like painting a spline that will plant trees along that spline, or removing trees, or a million other things. So it's not just roads, but roads are probably the coolest application for it, I'd say.
Nice. That's basically 40 quid's worth of asset just right there.
Yeah, for less than 40 quid. So
which other ones did you try that you said that that you weren't able, that didn't really do what you needed it to do for the roads?
I don't want to shit talk other road assets. I guess
it's just like, wasn't usable for your use case.
Yeah. So we tried Easy Roads. That was probably the one we invested the most time in, and that was like, it's a really good tool. It performs really well, but it is the version we were using, at least. I don't know if it's changed recently. It was like closed source, which is like a really kind of insurpassable limitation if you're doing like professional level development. Closed source is just a complete deal breaker, because nothing ever works exactly how you want it to.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a single like asset store plugin we downloaded that we didn't tweak in some way during the development process. It's just inevitable. So like closed sourced assets, I think is really limiting for development.
How many guys were you working on Hurt World? I told you before. You told me before, but I forgot.
So over the lifetime of the game, it was between like 3 and 7 people. You kind of, you bring people on when you need them, kind of. So yeah, a fairly small team working on that.
It's amazing what you've accomplished with such a small team. So you're saying that Unity should employ Aussies for doing Unity terrain?
Yeah, we seem to enjoy making Unity terrain tools.
It's got to be something in the water. Maybe it's because of all that nice environments you got around you. You got the most diverse terrains. You go travel from one part of Australia to another, you're going to see completely different looking country.
Yeah, Australia is like a real world survival game experience, so it's actually like incredibly correct, but I hear that sometimes.
Is Mad Maps named after Mad Max? Is that an homage?
Sorry?
Is Mad Maps an homage to Mad Max?
I actually hadn't thought of that before. I wish I had. I'm gonna say it is in the future.
Alright, let's do that again.
Perhaps the name was arrived as just like a quick kind of straw poll. What's something memorable suggests a bit. So you'd have to ask the person that actually came up with the name that won that.
Oh, let's pretend. Okay, let's do that again then. So, is the name Mad Maps an homage to Mad Max?
Yeah, absolutely. From Mad Max. Yeah.
So I've tried to put into my Unity. I've tried to import another asset pack. I've tried to import 3D Forge's Village Exterior Kit, because you're talking about picking stuff up and stamping it. So I figured, I'll just throw some more assets into my Unity. And since doing so, my Unity is like going, I'm dying, I can't take it anymore. So it's saying, hold on, importing. It's finally now dragging along saying importing small assets. So in a few moments, I'll be able to sneak into Unity. I was about to put my cleavage back on. I just remembered that I will be editing this and sticking it onto YouTube. So possibly not the best idea. But hey, you know what? Sod it. Let's do it. There you go.
If it gets your views, it gets your views.
And it's gone again. So, a couple of seconds in for a cleavage shot. Let's get the subs coming in for the boobs. Come for the boobs. Stay for the Unity.
Yeah, you gotta hook them in.
Might have to start dancing.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So you've got
that is a switch philosophy.
It is good. The old bait and switch. We've got imported in also into my project Map Magic, which is it makes it a bit confusing for me because those are two products with MM in there. So yeah, we've got
I still get confused sometimes.
Especially when you refer to it as MM.
Yeah, for sure.
So do I need to import any other add-ons or plugins, or is everything straight now as I've downloaded Mad Maps from the asset store? All I need now is that's it, everything in, and the optional extra is that demo package that you've got available on your website, but it's not actually needed, correct?
Yeah, the only thing you need is the Mad Maps package from the asset store. And so today we're going to play around with Map Magic as well, just because there's like a nice integration. And like the thing to remember about Mad Maps, it's not like so much designed for content generation. Like it's not a procedural generation tool like Map Magic is that actually goes and makes these like height maps and splat maps and stuff according to those rules. It's much more a tool for integrating those things together, integrating the places where you generate all this data and linking them together and putting it in like a structure that's much nicer to play with than actually making that data in the first place. So yeah, we're going to use Map Magic to kind of generate a bit of this data, but really you could use just like regular terrain painting or whatever pipeline you have already to generate terrain data. And then yeah, the demo assets are just so things look pretty. We could do it with purple cubes if we really wanted to, but it's a bit nicer to do it with things that look half decent.
I don't want any more purple cubes in my life.
Yeah, they're kind of intentionally made to hurt your eyes, I guess.
Well, Foxbine's about to get himself in trouble, saying that he's not sure he can trust anything I say these days. He heard I was playing Justin Bieber on stream the other night. And as everyone knows who was on the stream the other night, we were doing song... people could actually just put their song requests in, and Foxbine had himself a Justin Bieber parody song, which... something about StarCraft, I didn't really understand it. So don't try and get me in trouble, Foxbine, with your Justin Bieber love. We all know who's the Justin Bieber fan in chat. And also don't forget, everyone in chat, you can do ! flips to see what level you've got yourself up to. And we are going to be on the anniversary stream next weekend, which unfortunately Sean can't make it because he's got, real life obligations. He's off having fun, enjoying himself.
Yeah, I got a thing.
So managed to snag him a week early to come in and chat with you all. But on next week's stream, we've got 10 other developers who I will be announcing their names after this chat because, I just need to keep you a little hooked a little bit more. Foxbine, you finally got a rank, buddy. You got so close. So close as a rank. Well done, buddy. We've got Code Jockey in with Sanyo. So get your flips in. You'll see how many flips you've got. For some reason, Gegabell was losing his flips last night. Nobody knows where his flips have gone. And you'll be able to use those flips for getting fun stuff. don't worry, tonight you don't need to get any flips in chat to win yourself a copy of Mad Maps, because Sean has been so kind. He's given us a copy of Mad Maps to give away. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that.
No worries.
So,
Also, Stan Io had a question for me about the Vegetation Studio integration as well. So I thought I'd just kind of mention that quick.
cool.
Yeah, so we do have full Vegetation Studio integration, and what that means is, so if you have Vegetation Studio installed, it'll treat that information that you put on the terrain like normal Unity tree data, and it'll, like when you use world stamps, when you do everything, like it'll act like you would expect, capturing that Vegetation Studio information, pasting it down. The road tool can interact with that information as well. So it's basically you just treat that Vegetation Studio information like you would normally be treating tree information, and it's pretty seamless. It acts like you would expect, copy pasting the vegetation down.
That the pro version, people are having a lot of problems with getting the pro version working, because it works slightly different than the previous one. So that's not a problem with Mad Maps. Or is...
So the pro version, yeah, it's the nice thing about Mad Maps is that it deals like mostly just with the data. So with the new version of Vegetation Studio, the underlying data hasn't changed. So it's not really a significant change for the integration. I believe most of the problems people have is with more of the front end rendering side of Vegetation Studio than the actual back end data side of things.
Cool. We're back down to like a few, hopefully, seconds left of importing 3D Forge's Fantasy Exteriors. Can somebody give me an exclamation mark 3D Forge in chat? I'm not sure if that actually command is the right one, but let's try it out, see if it works. It is! And for good measure, let's throw in an exclamation mark Map Magic as well, seeing as we're playing about with Map Magic. Let's see who can get there first.
Yeah, one day in the future, maybe we'll have asynchronous asset importing in Unity, because that's definitely the thing I'm waiting for the most with Unity, is just importing small assets. All right, time to go make another coffee.
Well, we've got next week on the stream, Yolan, member of the community, who's made his own tool for handling packages and importing them into Unity and getting compatibility from your GitHub repos and everything. He'll be on stream trying to show me how I can use his awesome package management tool, which will get me out of the dark ages and into the light. Oh, now
yeah, the asset database can definitely use some extension. We basically, at Bankroll Studios, we pretty much wrote our own kind of second layer asset database as well, just to like make modding possible.
I was going to ask you about modding. There's a few people have made like mod tools. So there's Moddable, I think it's called. It's from the guy who did MMO2. If somebody wants to do an exclamation mark UMMO2 in chat, I think that's the right one for him. I wonder if it is. How did you guys handle all these people that want to be able to have their own Hurt World server and make changes to it?
Yeah, well, like anyone can spin up a server, anyone can install mods. Like the actual modding itself is a little bit tricky, and the trickiest problem is like cross-project references. And also the problem of like you want to like distribute enough information so people can make mods without like distributing the entire source code of your game.
Yeah.
So you kind of want to like, so in terms of Unity, we basically used Unity packages, or sorry, not Unity packages in the editor time, like what are they called? The runtime thingies. You can't remember the name of them right now. The runtime version of Unity packages, asset bundles. That's the one. So like it can be kind of tricky to figure out exactly how much information you have to give out for people to make mods. So we set up this whole system where like one of the cool things about the Unity kind of serialization structure is, for instance, if I have a project and I have this class in the project and it does all these complicated things and has all these variables that are serialized in Unity, and I don't want to, I want you to be able to make an asset bundle that has like a game object with that component on it with serialized data that you set, and then I want to be able to load that asset bundle that you made into my game. And that's basically a mod. So if I want to do that without giving you all of my source code, it's pretty easy to do that. All you do is strip out all the code that actually does stuff and leave the serialization pattern, and I just give you this like empty script. You make an object with that serialized data filled out, and you make an asset bundle and send it back to me, and it all just works fine. I can load that as if I'd made that component myself. So that was like a big part of the modding. And then yeah, like cross project referencing is kind of a nightmare. Like building multiple asset bundles that have references. Like if I have an asset, if I the asset bundle that's like my mod, and I want it to like refer to some asset in my game, then that's like pretty tricky as well. All right. Yeah, I can see you. All right. Well, how about we can start off with like a new scene if you'd like, and then we can just kind of go through everything from the start.
I'm muted on the thing. There you go. The mics have gone funny. That's what happens when you're sharing your screen. Sharing the screen and everything goes bad. Have we got Kermit is coming to the chat. Hello, buddy. And Robert Ramsey's come in just as my audio went funny. So, can everyone hear? Can everyone hear Sean? Okay.
1, 2, 3,
Or you become a bit of a robot from in my ears. Is he a robot for anyone else, or is he a robot just for me? Bit robotic. Let me give you a. Hang on, let me try calling you back on the Discord, because sometimes that works. I'll call you back in 2 secs. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hey,
Is that a bit better?
Yeah, you're not a robot anymore.
Great. I mean, I would like to be a robot one day, but that's for the future.
Funtech Studio saying that was full Black Mirror there. That episode, Bandersnatch. Have you seen it yet, Sean?
Yeah, I've played all the endings.
Have you done?
That's exactly what being a game dev is like, if anyone's wondering.
I only was allowed with the missus to do one ending with her because I was, we tried to like rewind and go through to see if we could just just try out the other endings. It's like, no, you got to do the whole thing. And then I was reading in the paper that if you do the same things a number of times, like if you pick up the picture off the table like 3 times, then you get a different cutscene. So you're thinking, well, I've already done this cutscene, so I won't do it again. But no, it's like if you keep doing the same cutscenes, or you do certain cutscenes in order, you then get different cutscenes. And apparently, they're unlocking more footage as well. So.
Oh really? They're like still expanding it.
Yeah, it's like they're doing DLCs, like like patches and updates to it.
Nice, interesting. Well, I hope to see kind of more stuff like that in the future on Netflix. It's interesting.
Oh, the interview
take on it all.
They were basically saying how it pretty much nearly killed them and made them go mental as the characters and as the guy who I won't give it away. One time
spoilers.
No spoilers. I have muted you because of the spoilers. No, see, look, not giving any spoilers, San. Not giving any spoilers. But yeah, you can. I mean, if you pick up a picture, that's not a spoiler, is it? What series is it? It's Black Mirror, but Bandersnatch is like a one-off episode, interactive Netflix. So Bandersnatch doesn't really count towards the episodes of the series. So yeah.
I guess. So yeah, Messi, if you wanted to like, new scene. There we go. Awesome. So I guess first thing we'd want to do is get a terrain, and if we're using map magic, I guess we just want to make a new map magic object.
All right, so I haven't touched map magic since the last time Dennis was on stream. I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah, no worries.
So you
right click, 3D object, map magic.
There we go. So you guys and gals, you're getting yourself a map magic tutorial at the same time of a Mad Maps one.
Well, I'm going to skip right to the end of the map magic tutorial because you can just drag in if you want. There's an asset in your project view right now called Map Magic Generator, which is a generator tree for map magic. It was where you were before, just in the demo folder.
Oh.
Yeah, Map Magic Generator. So if you select the map magic object in your scene, you'll see under general settings, there'll be a thing for the data.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just drag the map magic generator asset into there, and then if you go up to the top and just go show editor, you'll be able to see the tree. So this is pretty much like a regular map magic generator. The one difference is with the outputs. So how Mad Maps works with map magic generation is that instead of using the traditional outputs, we use like special Mad Maps outputs that instead of writing the data directly to the terrain, it instead writes it to a, oh nice, all those outputs have died, I guess. They aren't there anymore. So we can start setting those up if you'd like. So we got to make some new outputs here because they are for some reason not there right now. So if you right click on the pretty much anywhere, do you get a I can't see the context menu. Does the context menu not show up?
Yeah, I can see it. You can't see it. No one at home can see it.
No, do you get the option under create to create a new generator of mad maps outputs.
If you look on the stream, you
If
can
not,
see
you
the
might-
can you see the context on the stream?
No. Yeah, I can work with that. All good.
Hang on, let me try and sort out why. Hang on. Discord.
Yeah, possibly what you need to do
Is that better
is
for you?
yeah, there you go.
There
So if you look under the create option, there isn't. Yeah, right. So we need to tell Unity that Map Magic is installed. So we can do that real quick. If you just go to your player preferences. Sorry, the player preferences, not the editor preferences. And if you just scroll down to the scripting define symbols.
Oh, I just realised I'm still on Gamma. What would do that? We just had some questions come in. First time seeing this. So what is it good for that we don't have yet? Oh, fun tech. Yeah, you missed the beginning bit, mate. Gave the full intro.
I did the spiel. It's all right. I can do the quick spiel again. So it's like the equivalent of painting in MS Paint versus painting in Photoshop. Like Mad Maps gives you layers and gives you like copy paste for terrain data, gives you like a road tool, and makes it so that when you change, like it makes it a lot more easier to iterate over maps and split maps up into modular elements and work with them like that. So in the scripting define symbols message, just put Map Magic in all caps, one word.
Like that?
Yeah. Cool. So for anyone who doesn't know, scripting define symbols, they're basically just like preprocessor directives, which are complicated to explain if you don't know programming. But basically, we're just telling the code to recompile, knowing that Map Magic is in the project. Because otherwise, if we compiled Mad Maps with the Map Magic references and Map Magic wasn't in the project, the compile would fail and it'd be like, well, I don't know about this thing called Map Magic, so I don't know how to interact with it. Yeah, so if we go back to the Map Magic tree now and right click and look at the create. Yeah, so we've got these Mad Maps outputs now. We might be able to just reload the Map Magic generator if we haven't saved it or anything. So if we just, what's the best way to reload it, I wonder? Maybe just like null that field out. Yeah, see if, maybe. All right. Maybe it's saved or something. Or if we reopen the scene, possibly, or make a new scene, just start from scratch. Because it'll be the generator will be in memory, but it will have loaded when we didn't have that precompile. Yeah. All right, it's all right. We can try and set it up again, if you like. If that all doesn't work. Yeah, it would possibly work restarting Unity, but it's all right. We can just set them up again if we want.
Try restarting Unity. Shall I give it a go?
Yeah, because it's just like that generator asset loaded into memory when we didn't have those precompiles, so it didn't know about Mad Maps yet, and it's probably just still in memory. So reloading will work.
while that goes on, I will leave you to chat with the guys and explain about your integration with Gaia, while I just go check on the little one who's sitting there sniffling, coughing, and walking around hallways.
Yeah. Doesn't look like there was any luck with reloading that, so it probably saved. That's all right. You there, Messi? Oh, yes, all right. Yeah, so I can talk quickly about the Gaia integration. So generally, like integration with Mad Maps is pretty easy with any tool that writes to the terrain, because Mad Maps has the ability to capture your terrain and store it inside a layer, which you can then work with in the Mad Maps kind of architecture. So anytime that you have a tool that does stuff to the terrain, you can then capture that information, write it into a terrain layer, and then work with it within the Mad Maps infrastructure. So Gaia is one of those examples of where you can just write to the terrain, and then yeah. So we're kind of getting lost in the weeds here, I guess. But let's just quickly set this up. So if we just right click and output where you are there, I think that's where the height output was. So we just make a Mad Maps height. And then just put it there.
Which one do you want? Hello?
Hey, yeah, sorry, I'm just checking. It doesn't matter that much, I guess.
Whee.
So, and then if we just or alternatively, if you wanted to just re-import the package, just re-importing that asset, the magic generator, that might be quicker than resetting all this up. Or alternatively, we can just make a terrain manually. Whatever works best. This is kind of not part of Mad Maps right now. This is just a general level creation, but yeah.
Let's hang on, let's. Why did my magic go? Am I on my left hand side? It disappeared. Close tab. Yeah, delete that. Did I miss? So I missed you guys talking about Mad Maps and Gaia.
Yeah, so we're just talking about like the shallow integration of any plugin that writes to the Unity terrain. So any plugin that writes to the Unity terrain, for example, Gaia, Mad Maps can work with, because it can just load in the terrain information that's been written into a layer, and then you can work with it in that structure. So it's any tool that does stuff to terrain data, Mad Maps can work with perfectly well.
I think Sanyo's suggesting that we stick in Gaia to get around this problem. A little bit worried about spending 6 hours waiting for a guy to import with Unity's. It would be nice to see it.
Yeah, more waiting for assets. All right, nice one.
Yay!
So it's all set up. So we can just hit force generate all, and that'll pump out a nice little terrain for us to start working with.
Dun dun dun! Everyone at home, it's working.
All right, so if we look back at the terrain now, we got some stuff.
There we go.
So it ain't the fanciest terrain in the world, but it'll do. It'll do.
So what did we actually have in here that was specific for Mad Maps?
Yeah, so the outputs are exactly the same as regular Map Magic outputs. They're just versions that, so like for instance, for splats, and details, it's different because we kind of deal with splats and details differently with Mad Maps that I can get into in a sec. But it's pretty much equivalent to working with regular outputs. You just instead use the Mad Maps equivalent. And so instead of writing those outputs, the vanilla Map Magic outputs write directly to the terrain, and these outputs instead write to a layer on the Mad Maps, in the Mad Maps kind of structure. So if we go back to the terrain and just have kind of a look around, if you just select the object under the Map Magic thing, so we can see on that there's this component called the terrain wrapper. And so that's where all the kind of all the information lives. That's where all your layers live. You can see you've got 2 layers there that Map Magic generated. One's just the bottom layer called Map Magic. One's the layer above that called stamped layer. And so for instance, like if you select one of those objects, you can see information about what's in the layer. So you can see we've got a 513 by 513 height map. We've got 4 splat layers. If you click on the eye icon on any of these, you can inspect the information that's inside. So you can see the height map that we generated, and do fancy things like save as a texture and stuff if you want. And we can inspect all that information on every specific layer. See where all the trees were put, all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, the bin does pretty much what you'd expect of destroying the information on that channel on that layer. So, yeah, you can kind of get the idea now of to get this final terrain, what we're doing is we're combining this bottom layer, Map Magic, with this layer above called Stamp Layer, and we get this final output, which is on the terrain. But I can do stuff like I can change what's in this bottom layer, Map Magic, and not lose everything I do above in these layers above, in this stamp layer. So let's talk about splats and details, because it's a little bit different in this. Yeah, so we can pop out the inspector here and just have it in its own window, which can be pretty useful. So in normally with splats,
by popping out, I did something.
Normally with splats and details, you define them like on the terrain, and Unity have kind of realized that this is a terrible idea. With the new terrain system, you have these terrain layer things, which are like assets where you specify splats, which you guys might have had a chance to play with already. But before they made this realization, I made Mad Maps, and Mad Maps supports versions earlier than 2018.3. So we kind of had to solve this problem of having splat prototypes and detail prototypes that could be shared across scenes and could be like reconciled and changed in one central location. So whereas normally you would specify splats and details directly in the terrain, with Mad Maps you instead make what are called splat prototype wrappers and detail prototype wrappers, which have exactly the same parameters that you would normally be setting on a splat or detail. So if you click on the splats tab in the terrain wrapper inspector, you'll see we've got 4 of these objects in a list, and these are wrappers. If you click on any of them, just like double click the object reference, and you'll see we get this kind of scriptable object in the project. And if you look in the inspector for that, you'll see that it's exactly the same thing as your regular splat specification, and it's very, very similar to the new terrain layer. And for the new version of Mad Maps in 2018.3, we'll get rid of the splat prototype wrapper thing altogether and just use terrain layers. For some godforsaken reason, Unity have decided to not, like, they realized that they needed scriptable objects to specify splat prototypes, then they just ignored it for detail prototypes. So you have exactly this, like, I don't understand. It's like mildly infuriating because I have to like strip out half of this problem, but it's not fully solved yet. We still have to deal with detail prototypes and needing like a scriptable object for that. But anyway, so just keep in mind with Mad Maps that you want to be specifying your splat prototypes with these scriptable objects, not necessarily on the terrain. So then, like, Mad Maps will go and manage and set the actual splat prototypes on the terrain component.
Cool.
And same for detail meshes. This is necessary when you have splats and details spread across different scenes and different terrains, and you want them to be the same thing, and you want them to eventually come together and reconcile into one splat map or one detail map.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we can, for instance, if we select the terrain right now, if we just go back to the layers tab of the terrain wrapper, and we can just, for instance, disable the stamp layer and reapply all, and we can see exactly what the stamp layer did. So if we just click the reapply all tab, reapply all button just below the layer display, with that thing unticked, then we'll just see the base layer. We see like we lost a thing over there in the middle of our screen. We lost like a bit of a mountain. So you can also like isolate things like that.
Is there like a limit to how many layers we can have, or?
No, there's no limit. You can have a bajillion. It will eventually slow down the application process. But also, one thing you can be thinking about is like splitting your map up. So you can have like a creation scene, just like a scene where you're making a certain part of your map, and that can have lots of layers. And then in your final scene where you're combining all the bits of your map, you can have it be simpler. So you can spread those layers out, and you can have them like separated into different parts. So what we can do just quickly is give an example of making a world stamp and then stamping that down somewhere. So if we can just do something, say like grabbing a bit of a forest and these rocks that we see on the terrain.
Oh yeah.
And then we're just going to grab that, create a world stamp that will be a separate object that contains the information that we grabbed, and then chuck it down somewhere else on the terrain. So to do that, to make a new world stamp, what we want to do is go up into the tools thing in the menu, just in the very top menu. Tools, Mad Maps, World Stamp Creator. We can just drag that somewhere nice. So we can see we've got these movement handles. If you zoom out to see the full terrain, you'll see we've got this like box. So this box defines the area we're gonna capture. So if we just drag these two movement handles to a smaller area that we want to like make a stamp out of. Yeah, great. Something like that is perfect.
How do I make it move? There we go.
Yeah, so we've got like a bunch of different options in the stamp creator screen for all the different channels we have. We can choose to like not capture certain splat maps or detail maps. We can choose to not capture certain types of trees. For now, like the default settings are pretty much fine. So if you click this red capture button at the top of that window, so
have we got like a limit of? Sorry, have we got a limit of how big our stamps can be? How small?
No, there's no real limit. You can capture the entire terrain if you want. It is limited to the size of the terrain because you're capturing the terrain data. It doesn't really make sense to capture a stamp of empty space. But no, it can be as big a terrain as you want. You can capture 4096 maps of stuff. But yeah, that's all fine. Yeah, so we can see we captured a bunch of stuff. We've got, for instance, like you've got the trees tab open right now. We can see the 3 different types of trees that we captured. We can also like select to ignore certain types of trees if we don't want to capture those. We can preview all the information that we captured with the preview buttons, preview all that data, and make sure that it's captured correctly.
Oh. Preview in a scene, preview in inspector.
Yeah, so we can see all the tree instances that we captured there.
So if I say ignore this one.
Yeah, no, so that'll toggle that. So when you it won't be reflected in the preview, but when you capture the actual object, it will ignore that type of tree and only capture the other ones. Yeah, so now if we're happy with all the information that's been captured, we can just go down to the bottom of that stamp creator window, and there'll be a button. You might have to move it just to something with a bit more vertical space.
Oh, yeah. You don't need a scrolly scroll. There we go.
It does need a scrolly scroll. So we can just create a new stamp. We can just click that button, create new stamp.
Oh, and I can create a template as well. So if I could use it for later.
Yeah. So templates are like a way to record about how you captured a stamp. So they're really useful if you want to recapture the same area multiple times with exactly the same settings. So like they, so you can like say if you want to iterate over this forest area and you want to keep recapturing it, you can create a stamp template. And so instead of like moving the movement handles around to capture this, to like get this area right, instead of like going through and saying you want to ignore this second tree prototype every time, you can just save that into a template and then load that up next time. So something important that I should mention is the mask. So if we look down at this bottom channel just below like all these, it's the last expandable area of the stamp creator. We've got this thing that's the mask, and the mask specifies how we blend that stamp into the world. So if you click edit, it'll open the mask painter. And if you go to the screen now, you'll see that the mask right now, this sort of clear color means that it's full strength mask, which means that this will blend absolutely with everything below. But if we want to like say have it be a bit of a fuzzier boundary, we want it to blend more smoothly in with its surroundings, we want to kind of paint a blurred area around. So what we can do is with this default brush setting, we can just set the strength to 0. So we're going to paint a value of 0.
Happy accidents.
And so which will show up as red when we paint, and then a gradient for other things. Yeah, so if you don't want to accidentally hit those movement handles while you're painting, you can hit this lock icon in the stamp creator, and that'll just lock where the bounds are.
Oh, cool. Gilda just gifted a sub to Kame. Thank you very much, Gilda. Gifting subs. Welcome to the messy family, Kame. Use your messy bobs wisely. Don't scare any children with them. The power of the afro.
Yeah. So right now we're just painting like pure 0 mask on the stamp. But if we want to have a bit more of a nicer curve, we can also just change the fall off, which will be probably a bit of a easy way to do things, just to be a bit more of a curved fall off.
I might put my strength to 0.5. Should I put that back down to 0 then?
Yeah. And then you want to change the blend mode to max. And I think for the fall off curve, you probably want like a slightly different looking curve. If you just do something like that, that'll probably be fine.
It's not joining anything anymore.
Yeah, sorry. You want to put the strength to 1 now.
There we go. Ooh. Okay. Shall I click capture again or?
Yeah. So we can click capture again, and then we can either. So you made a world stamp before, so you can either drag in that object to replace it, or you can just make a new object.
So I can. How?
That's the for a stamp template. You can replace a stamp template. You just want to expand it up a bit more. Yeah. Scroll view coming soon. Just replace existing stamp.
Oh, I've got a red. No reference exception. So I'm looking at my code. I spent all day today trying to get rid of as many of these bloody red things as I could.
Yeah, I believe that's just a GUI exception. Should be alright. So now we've got this new object, this new world stamp, and we can close the stamp creator now. So we've got this new object in the scene, and it's got this forest area, and we can move it around the scene if we want, and put a new forest on our map, create a new one. We can also do things like rotate it and scale it. So first thing, let's have a bit of a look at what the editor looks like for this thing and try and explain kind of what's going on. So you can see we've got the channels, we've got the data here at the top. We can preview it like we could before. We can edit the mask again if we want. Yeah. And so you can edit the mask and then like write that to the prefab if you want, or revert it to what the prefab was. And then we have just like a bunch of different properties. So we can, for instance, snap the stamp to the terrain height if we want. And that will just set it automatically with the offset that you can specify there as well. We can specify the layer name that we want to write the stamp into. So let's change that to something, because we're already using the name stamp layer. So let's just change that to something that we want. It can be any name. If you make a new name for a layer, it'll just get created when you stamp down on the terrain. We can enable a preview, and we can kind of get a sense of the height map that's going to be stamped there. So we captured a pretty flat area. So the preview isn't super interesting, I guess, but you can see roughly like what the height map is that we've captured in this stamp and what it might look like when we actually stamp it down somewhere. And then there's some other kind of more niche stuff which isn't explained in the documentation, with like the stencil and the priority and stuff, which we don't really need to worry about right now. And then we have a bunch of different options about how we actually blend this stuff with the base terrain. So let's just like do it with the default settings, and then we can kind of have a bit of a play later with all the different settings. So if the way to actually stamp this down is to click this button, recalculate layer, messy layer. What that will do is it will, every stamp that you have in your scene that writes the messy layer will be recalculated. So yeah, we can see we've put some forest down, and if you do that again, what you'll see is that forest that we just placed down move.
Oh yeah. So if I wanted to put two of the same.
Yeah, so you would either create a prefab and use a prefab instance, or you can just like Control-D, duplicate, and have two forests like that. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's basically kind of world stamps in a nutshell. To get a little bit more kind of specific about it, so you can see with this stamp to the right that it looks like there's a lot less trees there, and the reason for that is that if we select that stamp on the right, that's a bit lower down. We can see that it goes under the terrain. Like where it goes under the terrain, it seems to stop placing trees. The reason why this is under the heights tab, we've got the heights blend mode set to max. So what this means is if the source terrain height goes above the stamp terrain height, we stop writing. So yeah, if we add, then that'll be different. And instead of only taking the terrain, only writing to the terrain when the source terrain is lower, we're just going to add whatever we have in the stamp to the source terrain. Yeah.
That's scarily easy. Because you're like, picking up a mountain and moving it. And I'm like, yeah, you're not though, are you? But But you are. Now, if I wanted to actually make it so we actually are moving it, so instead of duplicating, like cloning this to replacing this, can Mad Maps handle that, or would I have to now like sit here and rub it out with Unity's terrain tools?
So yeah, we're working on the cut functionality that will probably be coming relatively soon. That functionality isn't there yet, though. Yeah, we can try and make this mask a little nicer if we wanted. I'm trying to remember what this curve should look like. Also, make the radius a bit bigger if you want.
I can't see my thingamajigs anymore. Is it because of the let's try that out. This is fun. It's very quick as well. And I can just now, if I wanted. That's smaller.
For Gilda's question, he just asked if this is mostly a runtime or editor time tool. There are applications for, you can take a significant chunk of Mad Maps and use it in runtime, but there is also a lot of functionality which is limited to the Unity editor, just because there's a lot of like a lot of Mad Maps is helping you use the terrain in the editor. But yeah, you can absolutely like capture and place stamps at runtime, use the road tool at runtime, all that kind of stuff for sure.
Yeah. I just made a smiley face.
Nice.
Oh yeah, Gilda was thinking mostly about the road tool.
Yeah, we can have a bit of a play with the road tool if you'd like. Paint some roads along this lovely looking forest we've got here.
Yeah, I was just about to just carve in a road myself. But yeah, let's use the proper tool. Well, thanks for watching. That was it for the first part of my interview with the Mad Map developers over at Bankroll Studios. And the second part of this interview will be playing about with Mad Map's amazing road tool. So if you do like it, tell all of your friends, your neighbours. Don't forget to catch me over on Twitch or twitch.tv/themessycoder. And I'll see you next time. If you want to see more of my crazy videos, click on the left side of your screen now. And down below, there's that big juicy subscribe button, and right next to it is the magic bell that if you click it, it will tell you if I've got a new video coming out. Till next time.